where we left off is we had our centers done to this point, and today what I'm going to do is align them, machine off the bottoms, drill holes, the mounting holes. There'll be 2 in this one and 1 in the bottom of this one, and then cut our groove for our little alignment bar in both of them, and then each of them gets drilled and tapped on each end for probably a 1024 screw to hold that key in there. What I've done is I've machined a fancy little bar, and this is it, and we've got centers on both ends. Now this portion out here is extra stuff. This was a piece of material that I turned out several of these for a different application. And what I've done is, this is the inner bore for the headstock end, this is the inner bore diameter for the tailstock end, and this diameter and this diameter are just a random diameter that comes out the same, because I'm going to set them in a set of V-blocks. So now let's move it down here and I'll show you what my setup's going to be. Alright, well, this is my preliminary setup, and the way I plan on setting this up is I'm going to mount this on here like this, and I should backtrack a little bit. I have 2 split cotters, 1 for each of these, and there'll be a video coming out showing how to build these. We've started a new series on Atlas Machines, and it's going to how to make these machines affordable again, because the prices for parts, both reproduction parts and used parts from several sources, has gotten just way out of hand. So anyway, I've built a couple of split cotters for this, and I show how to do that. And the originals had a square head in, and this may be a temporary. I may not use these in the final product, but I just showed the way that I can do them. These have got a hex head bolt in there, and they are seated down in there so they won't rotate, just like the square headed bolt would. So nonetheless, this one will go in here like this, and hopefully we can get these aligned, because this is a fairly tight fit on these to the arbor. So one will go in that end, just like that. And the other will go in the tailstock end. So with our little custom built split cotters here, we can tighten them down, and what we want to do is we mounted them like that. And these, like I say, these split cotters have not been final fitted yet. There's a little more to do to them, and I see this one's not really set up in the slots the way it's supposed to be. There we go. That one seats in there. This one's a little too tall, but that's all right. So they're basically in place, and what I'm going to do is just rough level it off the table so that we get them situated. And let's anchor them down and see if they're going to appear to be halfway in line. And all we're looking for is just roughly level and parallel. And that looks pretty good, I think. We appear to be about 90 degrees there. Now what we've done in essence is we've locked the bores parallel. This is the way they'll mount on the table once they're finished. So alignment is going to be as close to perfect as I can get it with the equipment that I've got. Let's put our washer back underneath that one. These are going to be tight when I go to take them off. I'll probably have to work them a little bit to get them off the mandrel, but that's all right. Now my original plan was to take and use this mandrel, and it's a little better than just standard old cold roll. It's a little bit, I believe it's probably 4140. My original plan was to, once this was all done, to go ahead and use the mandrel, cut it apart, use it for a tailstock, and then use it for my spindle on the front. The tailstock, I've gone ahead and lapped it. It is going to work fine, I think, for the tailstock ram. The headstock, the diameter is a little bit too big. They've got I think it's 1 3/8 material that you actually need up here for the shoulder to hold your chuck and everything. So I'm probably not going to be able to do that, but we'll take more measurements later on. That's just the way it is, the way it worked out. But anyway, what I'm going to do is, now we've got them locked, we've got our bores in line and parallel to each other, or in line with each other. So what we're going to do is I'm going to mount my V-blocks, and we'll bolt them down to the table and indicate them in. We're going to mount them like that, mount it inverted. I'm going to take one piece of just scrap square tubing that I've got and run it in there to hold as support for the back. And my alignment will be off of this this mandrel, so that it's runs parallel. And this is just going to be a support block. I'll bolt it down to the table, and we'll add a spacer to clear so we can get in a little bit tighter, and probably add just another piece of scrap tubing on the back, and then we'll shim and clamp these so we're as close to being level and flat as we can get them. And then we're just going to take the fly cut across the top until we clean it up. I've already taken measurements as to where I want the key. I've got a drawing over there, a little sketch, and then I've got dimensions as to how far from each end I want to put my holes in. So that's kind of the plan. I'm going to go ahead and off camera I'll get my mounting set up for this, and then once we get ready to start machining it, well, I'll bring you back and show you where we're at. So here's our setup, and it's kind of sketchy. What I did is I mounted my V-blocks and zeroed them out, and there's been a modification to them. I've machined away a slot on both of them so that I can run a bolt down in and affix it to the table. So, and as we know, I consider V-blocks and angle plates and things like that, they're a disposable item. You know, they're set up for fixturing, so as far as I'm concerned, so that's what I utilize them for. So we set that up, and we've clamped it just with packing blocks and a set of clamps to hold it in place. And I've mounted a piece of 2-inch square tubing, and this is all just scrap tubing that I've had. And like I say, the setup's kind of sketchy. I've got 2-inch square tubing that I backed up against the bodies here and just clamped them in place. All that does is stabilize it moving back and forth. Now that 2-inch block doesn't come up high enough to clear all this radius, so what I did is I've got a couple of little 1/2-inch spacers there, again just a couple pieces of 1/2-inch aluminum scrap that I had on top, and I set up the backs of the index centers so that they're pretty much 90 degrees with the table, because that's actually a pretty good surface. Makes the base kind of wonky, but that's actually where it was set up, and it lays out pretty well there. So got my 1/2-inch spacers, then a piece of 1.5-inch square tubing that I just clamped to the whole setup. I guess I've got them clamped to the V-blocks to hold them in place. So, and then just a couple of machinist jacks blocked up underneath to give it a little more support. I would like to have clamped them together, but I don't have clamps that really want to clamp onto it well. Either I'm too small or too big with clamps. And I think we're just going to take real light cuts, see if we can't get it faced off. My fly cutter's not quite big enough for a complete pass to clean up in one pass, so I'm just going to make 2 passes. Don't want to change it because it's already zeroed out for the CNC machine. So I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to drop the head down a little bit closer, because I don't like that overhang if I don't need it. And we don't have any real level surfaces. We're going to clean up partially, I think about here and here, or someplace along there where it's not straight, but we're just going to run it out and see if we can't get it flattened out. It'll be the first operation. And all we want to do is clean up for flat all the way across. I'm going to make my passes going the other way. That way we're pushing it into the fence rather than pulling it away. Well, thought that was never going to end. I can imagine how you guys feel, but by the same token, at least I fast forwarded through it for you. I had to live this in real time. Okay, that looks pretty good. Got fairly big inclusion right there. I thought maybe that would clear itself out once I spotted it, but it didn't. That casting is a little more porous. I don't remember if I poured that a little bit hotter or if I didn't. I don't know what the deal is. That's a fairly gassy casting though. I guess it's not too bad, but right there, that's a big inclusion. Got a few little right there. but it'll work fine. So I think I'm going to go ahead and clean that off, get some Dychem on it. I think the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put my 3 main holes in it. There's one here, and then there's 2 in this casting. I want to lay them out, and then I'll probably go ahead and drill and probably tap the 41024 holes on each end, and then I'm going to take a 3/8 milling cutter and just run 1 pass 1/8 inch deep all the way across it. I think is the plan. So let's wash this WD-40 off of here just a little bit. We can do a little bit of layout. Well, for whatever reason, our little our wireless mics have shut off. Something's not allowing it to stay connected as it should. So we'll have to go back in and plug it in and see if that's just dead batteries or what the deal is. Anyway, so hopefully let's power this back the other way. Make our last cut through there, then we'll go back and drill and tap our 4 holes, and this project will be done for now. Well, I thrashed that end mill pretty bad. We'll have to pull it out and send it over to the tool and cutter grinder, touch it up a little bit, and then use it for kind of a junker end mill now. It's a Lakeshore Carbide, which I've been pretty happy with them. So let's go back one more time, reset this with the drill chuck, and we'll verify our holes and then chamfer them and tap them real quick, and then we're going to call it a day, I think. Yeah, it's been pretty well abused here. Can't imagine who would have done that. We know I always keep everything pristine here. Well, it'll take the rest of the day cleaning up this mess, but let's see if we can't break this down and see what they look like. There's what our bottom looks like. Just cleaning all that up. Get rid of all this Dychem and WD-40. I would have this table cleaned off. We'd have a place to set it. Yeah, I like it. Let me get back over to the bench, get a wrench, and get this apart, and we'll take a look at them. Final look. Now these split cutters are awful tight. They may or may not want to release. And they don't. Tight, tight, tight. Yeah, let's see. Let me put it in a vise and see if I can pop them loose here. There's one of them. Wasn't as bad as it could have been. There's the other one. can use this end as our tailstock ram. I don't think we're going to be able to use this for the spindle, but that's all right. We'll use it for something else. Oh. It's off. We'll run it through the solvent tank, so I have to deburr it. There's the tailstock end. Not unhappy with that. That pretty big inclusion right through there. I don't know what that's about, but functionally won't make a bit of difference, but looks kind of ugly. Something you're never going to be able to see, but still ugly. So yeah. We are getting somewhere now. If we look in our little box of parts, we have our fancy little overarm here already machined. Yes, that's right on there like that. And this spindle, yeah, the spindle would work in there. That's the way the spindle would sit. And then we would have our gearing on the end of it. Oh, we've got a nut right there that preloads everything. Then we've got our nut with our keyway, then our key that would go on there just like that. And then our spring-loaded plunger. Oh, come on now, get in there. Our spring-loaded plunger. Set in there like that. Come on, get in there. There we go. Gear doesn't want to fit on there we go. Goes in just like that. Locks us in position. Knobs on top. So yeah, we're getting there. So I'm not sure what the next thing is. I'll have to contemplate this. We're going to have to make our tailstock on our spindle. There's the cap that goes in the back end for our ram. Now this is out of the 6-inch Atlas lathe tailstock, and I do believe that the parts are virtually the same. And I believe probably the only difference between the tailstock on the 6-inch Atlas internal components and the index centers is, I believe on the ram, on the index centers, they don't have the graduations marked, but I think it's probably the same ram. I could be wrong, but that's my belief at this point in time. So anyway, this is the cap off of a 6-inch. So I know that's the same. So anyway, we're getting closer. Hopefully you found this a little bit interesting. I thought the setup was a little bit interesting or unique or something. So hopefully you found that a little bit interesting. Give you some ideas, and comments or suggestions, leave them in the comment section for me below. And as always, guys, thanks for taking the time to watch.